Hello, and thank you for coming to my presentation. I'll be talking to you today about my project I conducted this summer. My name is Phahtit Renas, and I was advised by Joe Jaco and Paul Keenlantz. My project was on the status of northern flying squirrels in Michigan's Lower Peninsula. So, the goals of this project were mainly there were three main goals. The primary one being comparing the efficacy of three different trapping methods. So, flying squirrels are a bit difficult to trap, and there are many ways to do it. The three that we used were live trapping, acoustic detection, and wildlife cameras, which I will elaborate on in a few slides. The secondary goal was to collect fecal and genetic samples from the squirrels we captured. This is because some literature suggests southern flying squirrels, which are the other species of flying squirrel in Michigan, could be displacing northern flying squirrels by way of a parasite they harbor, and because the habitat of southern flying squirrels is progressing north as a result of climate change, which in turn is also decreasing the habitat size of northern flying squirrels. And the third goal was to determine areas of presence for northern flying squirrels within the Huron-Manistee National Forest. And this was mainly for the use of the United States Forest Service and the branch in the Huron-Manistee. So we worked with them this summer. They provided me with a vehicle and a lot of help for this project, which was really great. They were awesome to work with. And for management purposes, they want to know where there may be northern flying squirrels in the forest. So, a little bit about northern flying squirrels. Known as Glaucoma sabrinus, they dwell across the northern U.S. and parts of Canada. So, I'll skip forward a few slides. And in this gray area is where their historic range is. It does expand farther into Canada and the northern U.S., like east and west of this image, but this is where they are in Michigan. They nest mostly in tree cavities, though they are opportunistic and will take advantage of old birds' nests, old birds' nests if available. And they're also nocturnal, active mostly in the first few hours of dark and the first few hours before it's light out again, so like dusk and dawn. They do make ultrasonic calls, which we took advantage of in this project with the acoustic detection portion. And these calls are usually between 20 and 25 kilohertz, so just out of range of human hearing. And contrary to their name, they don't fly, they actually glide. And their average flight's about 60 feet, though they can go much farther if they need to. And they glide, I'll show you a picture, by using large pieces of skin that they have between their legs. So let's see, I think you can see my pointer on here. This white area in the middle is their body. So they're really small and light. And when holding them, they almost feel like nothing, as if they should be a lot heavier, closer to the weight of like a large mouse as opposed to a chipmunk, which is what I was expecting when handling them for the first time. But they spread out and they catch wind a lot like a kite, which allows them to glide, which is pretty cool to see. And then another motivation for this project to know where they're distributed is their decreasing size and habitat, which I mentioned. So over the past few decades, due to climate change, there's been about a 200-kilometer reduction of their habitat. So this line here is slowly moving north, which is not great for them. And then southern flying squirrels, that is not southern people, are slowly moving up and creating more competition for them too. All right, so methods for this project. While not necessarily a method, we did conduct this research in Mayo, which is at the orange point on this map. That's where the Forest Service office was located, which made things very convenient. And as you can see, it's right in the range of northern flying squirrels, which is cool. And important because, we're trapping them. So for live trapping, we used Sherman traps. I'll show you a picture of those. They're here on the left, and it's an aluminum box with a trap door. So we would bait those with sunflower seeds, and the goal was to get 1,000 trap nights per site, and we used 288 traps per site. And we placed the traps on the ground, which is different than some other projects that are similar to this, where traps are placed on trees, but due to the time and amount of people we had working on this, that wouldn't have been practical. So placing traps on the ground made a lot more sense. And then I should also elaborate on trap nights. One trap night, a trap night is when one trap is set out for one night. So if you put out 288 traps for one night, you get 288 trap nights. So we were able to get our 1,000 trap nights per site in about 4 nights, depending on weather and any other complications we may have had. For acoustic detection, we decided on a minimum of 10 nights per site in semi-open areas with about 200 meters in between traps. And then the acoustic detectors we used were from a company called Wildlife Acoustics. You can see it in this picture in the middle. It's a green waterproof box with a microphone attached to it, and it's pretty indiscreet. Looks similar to a wildlife camera, which you can see here on the right. So difficult to mess with, and they're locked onto trees. So pretty non-invasive as well. And then for wildlife cameras, we decided on a minimum of 4 weeks per site in cleared areas that we'd clear ourselves about 35 centimeters off the ground, and we would bait the area with a liter of salmon oil, which is not as fragrant as you would think, to us anyway, but I'm sure plenty of animals can smell it well. All right, so here's a picture of Joe with the first northern flying squirrel we caught, which was a really good time. And on to the results. So total live trapping effort came to 105 hours and a total of 1,836 trap nights over 2 sites. So we ended up getting a little less than 1,000 trap nights per site, but still plenty for this project. We captured only 4 flying squirrels, 2 northern and 2 southern, so a nice even balance. For acoustic detection efforts, we spent 5 hours, and for camera efforts, we spent 4 hours. But I should note here that for both acoustic detection and camera efforts, we're not completed yet. For camera efforts, we're mostly done, but for acoustic detection, there's going to be a lot of work in the lab and outside, not outside as in the field, but work post-field efforts in order to comb through the data and distinguish calls of squirrels in all the data we have. So that number will go up significantly, but based on literature that I'll mention in a moment, and then just anecdotally, I don't think, or we don't expect acoustic detection efforts to pass 105 hours like we did with live trapping. And then these delayed results are due to COVID. We did start about a month and a half later than we expected to, but we're still able to get out in the field and get done with a lot of work, collect a lot of data, and it was really great. So what I learned mostly from this is that live trapping is a huge effort. This was known and has been known for quite a long time, but it is very time consuming, and it is interfered a lot with by other animals. So on the second to last night of trapping, we went out in the morning to check traps, and about a third of them were mangled. So they are just aluminum and steel boxes that can be bent, but something large would have had to do that. So Joe thought it must have been a black bear. So these traps were then unusable, and they'd been opened up. And then 61% of our total captures were white-footed mice. So when you get another animal, so if you have a white-footed mice in a trap, you can't have a flying squirrel in a trap. So that then decreases the likelihood of capturing a target animal. And like I've mentioned a few times, Time is huge when it comes to live trapping. So you're walking a grid through the forest with a big box of traps that you have to go out and bait every night and then check in the morning. So it's a lot of work, and it can take a lot of manpower as well. So you'll need many people in order to survey a large area. And we were only able to do 2 sites this summer as a result of COVID, and then also only having myself, Joe, and then a few others every now and then helping with the project. Acoustic detector methods need development when it comes to flying squirrel trapping. So I mentioned here that bat acoustic detection development, oh, I didn't finish the sentence, but is fairly developed. Like there are things called classifiers that allow for artificial or a computer to look at audio files that you upload and determine the species of bat that you have in that recording. So that makes bat detection super quick and easy, but only because there's a huge library of calls for bats. When we're talking about northern flying squirrels, it's not even comparable. There are very few studies, and there is no program that can artificially, or like no computer program that will recognize flying squirrel calls. That being said, there are ways to filter through recordings by using like categories of frequencies. So we know that most flying squirrel calls are between 20 and 25 kilohertz. So we can filter everything else out, which makes things a lot quicker in the program we use, but not nearly as fast as it could be if there were more development, which is definitely possible in the future. And then in a paper by Diggins and colleagues in 2016, it was shown that acoustic surveys require much less effort in the field and then slightly less in the lab when compared to live trapping. So this is what we expected going through this project, but it's nice to know and good to know that that has been seen in the past as well. So the main conclusions we can make from the limited results we have so far is that acoustic detection has huge potential. So with further development, more studies, and a larger call library, a classifier could be made similar to that which is used for bats, which could make acoustic detection really the only method needed for detecting flying squirrels. Because with wildlife cameras, you can survey a large area with less effort than live trapping, but you can't determine species, as northern flying squirrels look like southern flying squirrels in a picture, and the only way to see the difference is in hand. Like in this picture, you can see there are some gray belly hairs on this one, so that means it's a northern, but if there were white belly hairs, it would be a southern. And in a blurry image of a squirrel flying at night, you can't tell that. And then also when it comes to determining the sex of an animal, that can only be done in hand as well. It might be possible to determine that through various calls, depending on what kind of calls there may be that different sexes of squirrels make. So that adds to the potential of acoustic detection. So I guess I've been getting at the second point, that all trapping methods have drawbacks and different appropriate applications. Though with further investment into acoustic methods, that could be the best in every situation and would require much less effort, time, money, and skill to do. So that's all I have for you. Thank you for coming to my presentation, and I hope you learned a little bit about flying squirrels.